Good morning, Mayor, members of council. It's budget season again. This video is being made in early March. As the video is being produced, we are still in the process of putting the budget together. There are certain things where we have a degree of certainty, but a lot of it is still fluid as we continue to process numbers and move towards the presentation of the administrator's proposed budget, which you will receive on April the 17th. The purpose of this video and the subsequent videos that the staff will prepare is meant to provide you some background information, to provide you some context for things that we've been working on and hope to continue in the next fiscal year. My encouragement would be not really to get too hung up on numbers you may see on a slide. Those numbers may or may not be in the budget in the manner that you see them. The main takeaway is to get an understanding conceptually of what the various areas of the government are working on, where we think we see opportunities for fiscal year 24. And where there's some opportunities to do some problem solving on behalf of the residents that we're here to serve. Part of this process will entail explaining to you the manner in which you'll be able to submit questions to us. We have a formalized process for how that works. And so we encourage you to use the process to submit your questions once the proposed budget comes to you. We also will explain the manner in which we will be responding to the questions that you get. Rest assured that every single question you have about anything that's in the proposed budget will be responded to, and you will have that information available to you before you're actually asked to make a vote or to ratify a budget, which will come in May. I'm going to just kick things off here. I'm going to turn it over to Marty Prashant, our Chief Financial Officer. She will walk through some slides, give you some information about the process itself on when certain things will happen. And then I'll come back and talk about the City Administrator's Office and what's entailed there. And then we'll move through several presentations today. So Marty, take it away.
Hello, thank you. I'm Marty Prashant, City of Ann Arbor Chief Financial Officer. And then in this presentation, I'll be reviewing the overview of the process, in addition some forecasting that we have done, which enables us to present our final recommended budget to you in April. First off, we're recording this presentation on March 6th, which will be followed by presentations delivered by the Ann Arbor Housing Commission, Public Services, City Attorney's Office, and the DDA. Finally, on April 17th, the City Administrator will present his recommended budget to Council and the first ordinance readings, which will include some fee and rate changes. Along with that presentation will be some further information about the final recommended budget. On May 1st, we'll have the public hearing and resolutions associated for those fee changes and ordinance changes. And then finally, Council will consider the budget on May 15th with the second reading for those fee and ordinance changes related to rate changes. As part of the budget process, we make some general fund key assumptions, and I will be sharing those with you next. Our overall recurring revenue is projected to increase by 5.9% in fiscal year 24. The majority of that increase is related to property tax revenue, which is projected to increase by 7.25%. As we all are aware and experiencing, our current economic cycle has significant inflation. That inflation has both impacts on our revenue streams and our expenditure streams. We are projecting state shared revenue, which is related to sales tax, and our parking revenue to remain mostly flat during this next cycle. On the expense side of the budget, we're projecting increases at this time of 4.19% in the fiscal year 24 budget. Obviously, as indicated, our numbers are still fluid, so those final increase numbers may be changing. That 4.9 equates to about a $5 million increase. The expenditures as they sit now include cost of labor contracts, including the recently settled AAPOA contract with the police. It makes contributions to our pension and retiree healthcare that meets current city policy levels. It covers increase in forecasted healthcare cost, our asset replacement system, which is consistent with our policy, a $1 million savings annually for the replacement of fire stations, City Hall armed security, and an 18% streetlight energy increase, which equates to about $180,000 annually. I'm sorry, $300,000 annually. Finally, we are currently assessing 9.66 mils of the 12.5 mils due to Headley rollback. Looking at further detail of our general fund revenue, we are currently forecasting $125 million in recurring revenue, which is an increase of just under 6%, or about $6.5 million. As represented in the chart, 58% of our recurring general fund revenue is from property taxes, which equates to about $72.3 million. Our recommended budget will be presented in a manner that is consistent with best practices, which calls for our recurring expenditures not to exceed recurring revenues. You can go ahead, Sarah. Thank you. Finally, a look at our fund balance forecast. City policy requires we maintain a fund balance of between 15 to 20% of recurring expenditures less pass-through expenses. As you can see by the chart, we have successfully maintained a healthy fund balance, but you will also notice and see as represented on the slide here, a period of fund balance growth between fiscal years 20 and 22. That significant increase is notably due to significant general fund staffing vacancies and projects that were funded out of the general fund as one time that spanned fiscal years and are slated to be completed in fiscal year 23, which accounts for the drop you see in the fund balance represented from 28 to 18. In our recommended budget, you'll see we return to that 15 to 20% level, and that's what our final budget recommendation will include. I'll hand it back over to Mr. Mahoney to cover his area of budget focuses and initiatives.
Thank you, Marty. What you see on the screen are some significant areas of focus that the administrator's office will be involved in. As you know, we're playing an integral role in preparing for our bicentennial celebration. That celebration will take place across the full 12 months of calendar year 2024. We are continuing to evolve our Supportive Connections program that was launched as a result of the budget that you passed last year. In addition to adding some staff support in that office, we're also preparing to physically move the location of the program from the 4th floor of the Justice Center into the 1st floor of City Hall to make it more accessible for the public that we're here to serve. We are continuing to grow our DEI operation. We're moving forward with creating an ADA coordinator, adding an additional staff person, trying to get in position to do some training. Our work in partnership with the DDA and Destination Ann Arbor, a number of internal departments on trying to introduce public restrooms in downtown will continue. We hope to be able to at least launch a pilot for that effort sometime during the fiscal year. We will be continuing our aggressive pursuit of our infrastructure agenda. We want to get as much support from either Lansing or Washington, D.C. For projects that the city needs. And some of the things I talk about, like the infrastructure agenda, that's not really for the city administrator's office per se, it's for the entire government. But we are intricately involved in that work. And so we list it here. We are working on trying to improve our customer service. We do expect to get a consultant to help with that, as I indicated in our planning session that we had a few weeks ago. And then we're also working on, plan to work on doing a comp study. And why that is important, we, like other organizations, whether they're in the public sector or the private sector, we have to compete in the marketplace for talent. And we've had instances where some of our employees have left to go to other jobs for more money. And we've also had instances where people have chosen not to come to work here because some of our compensation is not competitive. So the comp study that we will do will give us some answers, put us in a position to see what needs to be fixed or improved so that we can be better, more competitive in the marketplace. This page simply relates to our DEI operation. As I indicated, we're trying to grow that. We've talked to you about that before. More support to help both internally and externally. So the focus of our DEI efforts will always be split between internal improvement and external relationship building, external support to the extent that's possible. Grants that we know we're going to be going after have to deal with the water treatment plant. The train station is still something that's on our radar. The situation at Depot Street long-term needs to be improved, and we need to sort of restart that. So we're wanting to be opportunistic about financial support to help us plan for that. We're in partnership efforts for bicentennial and the restrooms, as I indicated. And in terms of public engagement, we engage in an ongoing fashion in a variety of ways. We can't do our jobs without the engagement, in either through personal ways, through social media, through meetings, through individual contacts. And thus far, that has served us pretty well. Part of the administrator's office includes the clerk. So when you think about who we are, it's not just the small staff that works directly with me. There are a number of other offices that are also part of the administrator's office. The clerk is one of those. There are several things on this slide, and I said earlier, some things we're certain about and other things we're still working on. The need for the clerk's office is something that we're certain about. The implementation of 9 new days of early voting, the increased equipment for the satellite offices on election day, expenses allotted to the presidential primary, complying with additional ballot box needs for Promote the Vote 2. Those are things that we must do to ensure that our next election cycle is appropriate, is improved, and has the integrity that you and the members of the public should expect. There are some grants, or a grant that the clerk's office is pursuing, Proposition 20-2 with state funding. They work in partnership with the University of Michigan because of the satellite offices. You'll recall the outstanding student turnout for the last election. And certainly you would expect that to be there and perhaps increase for presidential election cycle. In terms of our communication office, We are continuing with the upgrade or redesign of the website. We think that work will culminate sometime the fall of this year. There is an effort underway in partnership for Ann Arbor water student new resident outreach. The more engagement we can do with students as they're coming into the city to study is positive for us. In our communications office, you know, they are about engagement at all times. So through our website, our social media channels, emails, a variety of ways to communicate both internally within the city organization, but also externally to the community that we're here to serve. One of our other internal service offices or agencies is Fleet and Facilities. They have the primary charge to work on the city facilities, which, you know, are aging. We have a lot of capital needs. We have instances where we have deferred maintenance over time, so we're trying to play catch up with that. The Fleet and Facilities Office works hand in hand with our OSI office on trying to electrify our fleet. Also, the replacement of multiple fire stations, which has been on the drawing board for some time. But Fleet and Facilities, they're the folks that actually deal with the logistics, with the planning, with the details that are necessary in order for us to see improvements within our physical plant and within our city fleet. They're working in concert with OSI on grants that will help with renewable energy and energy efficiency. They don't really engage with the public that much. It's an internal service office, and they're focused solely on trying to ensure that city government's built environment is functioning the way that it should at the highest possible level. Within our HR area, as I indicated previously, we want to do the comp study in order to make us more competitive. And we also need to do some staffing changes there in order to help us get the work done. The HR office has also been working in partnership as we labor to launch the Management Fellows Program with Eastern Michigan University. Why that is significant is because the fact that we are a lean organization, we need to take every step possible to sort of have a force multiplier effect in terms of talent. And we are hopeful to have a core from EMU to help us do a number of things that you've asked us to look at, including whether or not we need to have an ombudsman's office here in the city. We need help from the university in order to get some of that research done. Information technology, they're continuing to work on initiatives that you've heard before. Not much change in the staffing. They need a little help for boosting what they're doing. But if we could go to the next slide. The specifics, really, they want to work on obtaining a grant to build fiber from Ann Arbor to Ypsilanti. The service area administrator, Tom Schutchuk, has really been enthusiastic about this project. It's good for the overall community. They're working in partnership with Spark and the city on this fiber optic broadband project. They've been collaborating with the DDA about public Wi-Fi. And so the success of the IT projects enables not only city government, but the community at large to have greater connectivity, to have faster response times. And so this is something that's very important for us. Our safety office has proven invaluable going through COVID, helping us get ready to further secure our facilities, helping to make sure that our employees are taken care of. And so they have very modest requests to enable them to continue to do that work. And now I will turn it over to our leader for sustainability and innovations, Dr. Missy Stoltz.
Thank you very much, Administrator Dahoney. As Mr. Dahoney said, my name is Missy Stoltz, and I'm the Sustainability and Innovations Director. For the fiscal 24 and 25 general fund budget, OSI is trying to stay consistent with recurring funding requests from the last budget. We are also, the primary change is working to move staff out of the public safety rebate, also known as the 40-40-20 allocation by council, in anticipation of this funding terminating at the end of its 8-year cycle, which will be in the next few years. The move of staff into the general fund was balanced with the move of programmatic and support expenses from the general fund to either the new community climate action millage or that public safety rebate, aka the 40-40-20. So given this, the general fund for OSI will mostly be supporting base staffing expenses, with the community climate action fund and the public safety rebate being the primary source for programmatic initiatives that we're standing up. That is why that's the only major initiative we're highlighting on this slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. In terms of major grants, the Office of Sustainability and Innovations is pursuing many. This slide highlights 11 of the approximately 15 grants we are either currently pursuing or waiting to pursue once grant applications open. I won't talk about all of these, but some highlights include the Grid Resilience and Innovation Partnership to help support deployment of a potential sustainable energy utility and microgridding features in 3 areas of the city. This is approximately a $20 to $25 million request that we're working on right now. The Michigan Brownfield Redevelopment Grant, which is not currently open, but may be able to help support some of the associated expenses of advancing our landfill solar project, as well as an application that we're putting in for 10 AmeriCorps fellows to join the team and help with extensive public outreach and engagement on all the various sustainability initiatives we are standing up. And I wanted to also point out one last one, which is one we're doing in partnership with Public Works that has been submitted. It's called the EPA Swiffer Grant, and that is jointly to help fund the drop-off station redo that we're trying to stand up, as well as expand the returnable container program that we've been piloting with restaurants. And we want to expand that throughout the entire city. So that's just an example. Not all of this fundraising is specific just for the Office of Sustainability and Innovations. We're working with multiple different city departments to help find areas of overlap and advance our mutual initiatives. Next slide, please. Thank you. And as many of you know, partnerships are critical to achieving our sustainability focused goals. That's why we will continue in the next fiscal years and beyond to work with key community stakeholders such as Community Action Network, the Arbor Housing Commission, and new partners like Peace Neighborhood Center to figure out ways that we can help support them in their sustainability work and provide the critical services that our communities come to rely on every day. And that may be things like advancing a resilience hub at some of those locations, or helping them get materials and supplies to daylight for the rest of the community what sustainability looks like in practice. We're also focusing in fiscal 24 on enhancing and re-envisioning the A20 Collaborators Network, which is currently 120 organizations strong. And the idea is to make sure that that network is as effective as possible so that together we can hit our key goals of carbon neutrality in a just and equitable way by 2030. And as we're going to continue fundraising on the previous slide, which we elucidated, we're also going to be working with community partners to help make sure that they are properly funded to do the key work that's necessary. And so this includes continuing to collaborate with the public, Community Action Network, Elevate, and others to advance projects like our Bryant decarbonization work. And this, of course, includes working with other internal departments to advance our shared goals around resilience, land use enhancement, more mobility options, and of course, the circular economy. And then lastly, just wanted to share We know that community engagement is a core building block of success in all the things we're trying to do as a community and certainly within OSI. And that's why we look forward to continuing our commitment to at least monthly public events with a focus on having a more tailored series of conversations with frontline and underrepresented stakeholders. We'll certainly continue our big events, such as our sustainability forums going forward, but we also want to focus on more resources on going deep with our key audiences, as opposed to focusing exclusively on maybe big tent conversations that tend to draw the same individuals. We want to extend who we're engaging with and designing our programs with and for. We're also working on new dashboards with IT to transparently report on progress, and we'll continue investing in these resources so that we can be open with the public about how we're doing in the various areas of work and where there's opportunities for improvement, as well as when things are going exceptionally well. And we're going to move to a monthly newsletter, which we actually started in January of 2023. And we'll continue producing an annual report on our progress to make sure that people don't have to wait for one moment in time to hear what we're doing, but that we have multiple vehicles to engage with the public. And lastly, we're looking at more innovative ways to engage with our residents, such as standing up segments on CTN, possibly having a local radio program and a recurring visit, leveraging AmeriCorps members to do door-to-door knocking campaigns. And we're open to additional suggestions to make sure we're engaging the public in the work, but also making sure that we're aware of and take advantage of the programs that we have and are building to make sure they are as equitable and successful as possible. And with that, I believe I'll now turn it back over to Mr. Tahoney.
Actually, I think that handoff is to me. Thank you, Dr. Stoltz. Again, I'm Marty Prashant, the city's Chief Financial Officer. The Financial and Administrative Services area has an approximate annual budget of about $10 million and has 36 full-time employees. The bulk of the employees are housed within the Treasury unit, which is responsible for our customer service and utility billing functions. We have areas within the unit that are staffed at minimal levels, and in some cases with only one FTE to support activities. Which leads me to our next slide, which represents our upcoming areas of focus and initiatives. Our unit will continue to manage and support our grant writing services contract. And as we ramp up this program, and as you can see by what Dr. Stoltz reported, our ramped up applying for grants will require significant staff support on the financial end. Another area of focus will be succession and right-sizing our staffing. As we continue to ramp up our sidewalk construction millage funds, our affordable housing funds, and our climate action millage and grant-funded projects, budget and reporting structures, we will make a determination of the existing staff and the capacity to be able to continue to support successfully. An important aspect of our grant compliance is reporting. It is important to maintain clean audits to keep us eligible to receive grant dollars. Therefore, will continue to be an area of focus of our team as we plan for increased grant award activity. Our team will also continue to facilitate and manage capital funding, including bond issuance that are necessary to fund our capital improvement initiatives. A clean audit and documented financial planning and policies are essential for us to position ourselves to have positive results for debt issuances. Our final major initiative to point out is our support of the transaction to sell the 350 South 5th property to the Ann Arbor Housing Commission in support of the city's affordable housing goals. This transaction will also satisfy our current debt obligation on the property. Finally, key requests for the upcoming budget cycle include an increase in funding for Michigan Tax Tribunal appeals and the biannual municipal service charge study, which is a study that appropriately allocates general fund costs to internal users of general fund services. As I mentioned, the Financial Administrative Services area is responsible for supporting the citywide effort in grant pursuits by managing the contract. We also will be working in partnership with the OSI team to develop the climate action budget and reporting mechanisms that will be transparent to the public about how those dollars are being spent. We are also actively involved in the redesign of the public-facing website to encourage transparency of the city financials. And also on the public engagement side, as we continue to engage with the public on our financials by providing documentation on our website, we will look to develop an engagement tool for input into our annual budget performance, as well as our performance metrics that would suffice the public need for information. At that point, that wraps up my section of the budget, and I will be turning it over to Chief Kennedy to present his area's budget.
Hey, good morning, Mayor and Council. Mike Kennedy, I have the honor to serve as the Fire Chief. The Fire Department has an approximately $19 million budget, and we have 87.5 FTEs, both for fiscal 23 and for fiscal 24. Next slide, please. One of the major items that we worked on in fiscal 23, which will be continuing, is the addition of the service to provide service to our residents for ambulance transport. This is something that's been in progress for multiple years. Literally went online earlier this month, last week. And we will continue to support that and evaluate ways to sustain and if there's a need to potentially add to that service. Another multi-year effort for us is our fire recruit program. We are planning to continue this for both fiscal 24 and 25. Early in calendar 23, we had our first firefighter that hired as a recruit transfer from recruit to firefighter. So we've completed one cycle of that process. And also in 23, January of 23, we had our our second class of fire recruits start, and they are currently in EMT. With the training and education, it's about a year-long process from when we hire someone with no training or experience, which is the intent of the fire recruit program, for them to then become fully trained and transfer over to firefighters. And then other large areas with our emergency management group, and that's working on the hazard mitigation plan, which was adopted by council in fall of 2022. There are several action items that were addressed in that hazard mitigation plan. And so staff efforts will be directed to make sure we're meeting the requirements that were outlined. Next slide. Some of our key opportunities for fiscal 24 and 25, we do not have any FT requests for the next 2 fiscal years. A larger one is a full building generator for Vets Park, potentially working with Dr. Stoltz and OSI instead of a generator, potential solar and or battery. Station 3 over by Vets Park has had a very significant continuation of loss of power. That building is close to 60 years old, actually over 60 years old, and does not have building generation. The electrical grid in that area is not great. So until that building can be replaced, we're looking for backup power, and whatever we put there, we would look that could eventually be reused at a new facility. Some horizon issues, and these are outside of 24 and 25. One is the funding of Station 4. I'll touch that on another slide. And then some other ones more to put on your horizon is with the vertical growth of the downtown, firefighting and rescue challenges are much more enhanced and very tough for us for vertical growth. Such as the high rises that we're seeing in the downtown. A fire on a 5th or the 10th or the 15th story of a building is dramatically different than a 1,500 square foot ranch that's a single family dwelling. So our ability to quickly get resources to that incident is really key. And so with this increase of the downtown development and density, eventually that's going to put a need for additional firefighting units. And with that, we would also have to supply them a high-rise pumper, which is a special engine with an additional pump capacity that could help support the sprinkler systems and the standpipe systems, which we use for fighting fires in these. Again, this is outside of a 2-year request. This is just to put that on your horizon. Also, we found the need to longer term add a half an FTE for emergency management. Right now, that's a split position with OSI. Especially with the recent storm events last week with the ice storm, having a full FTE in emergency management would be very beneficial to us. And then an additional horizon issue is with the bike lanes and restructuring of the downtown. Turn radiuses are becoming very difficult for us to navigate a ladder truck in the downtown. So eventually we would like to replace our current ladder truck with what's called a tiller. You may have seen these in larger cities or TV where there's a driver in the back, and those tiller apparatus are highly maneuverable and would really help us navigate the downtown core area. Some grants we're working on as recently as the last couple of days, we've been working on with federal partners for potential infrastructure funding for Fire Station 4, which is over on the east side on Huron Parkway. We have a estimated $10 million build cost that would, as a reminder, be the first net zero fire station in the state of Michigan. Continuing partnerships with University of Michigan to determine the direction of Station 5. Current Station 5 is on U of M property and owned by U of M. We staff it, so determining the future of that building, which is actually our oldest facility at this point. Working on the emergency operations plan. We would like to have a city dedicated emergency operations center, which would be very helpful for us. We're continuing to work on external notifications and response plans. The city works very closely with our partners with Washtenaw County and the University of Michigan for public mass notification to make sure that we are timely notifying the public. And then some public engagement. This is going to be the second year of our young women camp, what we call Blaze and Blue, which we do in partnership with Ann Arbor Police. The first year was very successful. We will be doing a second one this year. And then another key initiative that our emergency management group has been working on is partnering with the K-12 schools on emergency preparedness. We have a great partnership with Ann Arbor Public Schools. An area that we've discovered that was a need was all of the charter and private schools in the city, which I believe there are close to 24 charter and private schools outside of Ann Arbor Public Schools. And they do not have the staff capacity for some pretty basic emergency preparedness. So we have been working with them to enhance that for those facilities. Next, it is Interim Chief Metzer and Ann Arbor Police.
Thanks, Chief Kennedy. So for police major focus areas and initiatives, we have two real major focus points for the fiscal year and one more ongoing ancillary focus point. Our two major goals include training for our officers as well as continuing to boost our transparency with the public. My training focus this year will be on mental illness training for officers, which not only includes training officers on how to deal with the mentally ill, but also a wellness component internally. You know, over the course of an officer's career, they can experience 300 to 400 critical incidents. And my feeling is that we need to put in a robust wellness program to take care of the mental well-being of our officers so that they can take care of the public more appropriately. In terms of transparency, we'll be launching our dashboard here in the next few weeks. Initially, it will contain statistics on calls for service, citations issued, and arrests. And then in the following months, we'll begin to add additional statistics to our dashboard to include response to resistance statistics, as well as personnel complaint statistics, including those received by ICPOC. And the final ancillary focus will be on police and cadet recruiting. The department has lost over 45 officers to retirement or resignation over the course of the last 3 years. Our detective bureau is currently running at only 12 full-time detectives, and that number was 24 in 2019. We have recently reorged the department to include the professional development unit, which will solely focus on training and recruiting. We are hopeful to hire 10 to 15 officers between now and December. Next slide. So as far as our budget requests go for this year, we're first asking for an additional $26,000 for customer service training. It's important to note that we collaborate with ICPOC very regularly, And one of their concerns involved the perception that officers have sometimes been short or rude to citizens. We take their suggestions very seriously, which prompted me to explore different options for training as it relates to this concern. Our second budgetary ask is to add 15 additional tasers to our Axon contract. We are currently operating with 2 different taser weapon systems, the X2 and the Taser 7. It's problematic not only for training, but also for consistency. Our goal is to get all the officers on the same weapon system, as well as have enough tasers for the new officers that we plan to hire this year. And our last budget request is for just over $105,000 for our share of the countywide Metro SWAT team budget. The costs are distributed among all county agencies who have officers on the team, and Ann Arbor's allocated contributions for this year equals about 35% of the SWAT budget for a total of $105,331. And then the last slide. So as mentioned earlier, we are going to be partnering with NAMI over the course of the next year to provide extensive mental illness training for our officers. We will also be continuing our partnership with the Ann Arbor Public Schools to provide training to their staff on basic first aid as well as CPR. As we continue to see more gun violence across the country, especially as it relates to mass shootings, we are in early discussion stages of partnering with the schools in the summer months when school is out to conduct active shooter training within the school building. And that will help our officers with familiarization with the buildings. And lastly, our public engagement piece. As mentioned, our dashboard will be going live very soon. We want to continue to build the platform over the course of the year to provide additional data to the public that is easy to understand and easily accessible. We will continue to post our policies online as well this year. In January, we hired a department PIO who has worked diligently to promote the department in the media, as well as to put out information on recent crimes. He's expanded our social media footprint to include Instagram, and he has also created a YouTube channel for the Ann Arbor Police Department. In 2022, the Ann Arbor Police Department has participated in almost 300 community engagement events throughout the year. As always, our goal is to continue to expand upon those efforts in the coming fiscal year. And now I will turn it over to our Community Service Area Administrator, Derek Delacourt.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, I guess, depending on what time you're watching this. My name is Derek Delacourt. I am lucky enough to be the city's Community Services Administrator and have been for several years now. Community Services, who we are, I think many of you have heard me say this before, but we consider ourselves often to be the primary point of contact for people doing business with the city, whether that is an improvement to your home, an interaction with the park system, the farmer's market, just a casual visit to a park, or if you want to visit the city or want to do business with the city and build a large-scale development, someone within community services is often the first person you talk to. We take a great deal of pride in that. We also partner extensively with through community development with the Office of Community and Economic Development at Washtenaw County to staff our HHSAB boards. And we do work and pass through some funding from the city to the Ann Arbor Housing Commission. So when it comes to how the city develops and how we engage with our residents, it is what we do. We are officially the Parks and Recreation Department, building and rental inspections and planning and zoning. The community development portion of that is what I referred to earlier, in that we partner with the Office of Community and Economic Development and the Ann Arbor Housing Commission. Next slide, please. Some of the major focus areas and initiatives that are coming up this year. First and foremost, we're going to be embarking on hopefully a Parks Capital Funding Study. I think everybody knows the Parks millage hasn't been increased since 2006, I believe, when it was first approved by the voters of the city. The cost of doing business has gone up considerably, and like everything else you hear about on a regular basis, infrastructure, whether it's pathways, playgrounds, or major buildings and components of those buildings associated with the park system, are going to need continued maintenance or eventually soon replacement. And how we do that will be maybe the biggest issue facing my service area, our service area, over the next 10 to 20 years. We hope to get out in front of that, and that study is part of that. In addition, it doesn't really impact this year's budget. It's been something that's budgeted in the past, but I think everybody is aware we are moving into doing our comprehensive plan, what has previously been referred to as the city's master land use plan. Will be at least an 18-month, probably closer to a 2-year process in which we evaluate what we have existing in a series of documents and engage the public in what the future holds for the city as far as land use development and all other related items when it comes to the city. That will be an extensive process and one that will take up a significant amount of internal capacity and put us in a position to work with and engage the community on what its expectations and desires are looking forward. On a more housekeeping level, it's been 10 or 12 years since we've revisited the city's building department fees and structure. So we want to take a comprehensive look at that and are hoping to do that in fiscal 24, engaging an outside consultant to assist us in doing that. Next slide, please. Another project that will be coming forward for council's consideration and that will draw some significant attention is recently the 415 West Washington site was approved by the Planning Commission for a PUD and concept plan that will be coming to council shortly in the next few months. And then after that, it is our intent to go out and seek a development partner for that site to help revitalize what's there currently and hopefully provide some additional housing and clean up the site going forward. We have just recently, through Parks, completed an ADA transition plan, which is great, other than it had identified approximately $30 million in need over the next 20 or 30 years, which will be a significant budget consideration going forward, something we plan on working with the administrator's office and council to identify long-term funding. We are grateful we have the opportunity to identify where our needs are, but are so very conscious of the fact that those improvements will cost money over time. And we will be looking to do our best job to budget those going out forward. And then the last and big thing we've always been working on over the last 5 or 6 years, and something that we understand is important for both council and the administrator's office, is to constantly be looking to streamline our process. Through planning and zoning and building and rental, one of our primary functions is to create a process that is predictable and consistent so that people who want to do business with the city know what to expect from us. We hear that loud and clear. In some areas we do a great job, and in some areas there are significant room for improvement. It is something we are partnering with the administrator's office and some outside agencies to take a look at, and are very open to any input we can get to improve that process. There's currently no budget asks associated with it, but it is something I think that is going to be prevalent over the next year or two as we go forward. Next slide, please. Building and rental inspections. I think everybody's aware most of this operations, especially on the building side, is handled through the city's construction fund. The rental side of the house is managed in the city's general fund, but we have no significant additional asks for that this year. So thankfully, unlike other years, we're hoping not to have any impact on the general fund this year. Community and economic development, as we mentioned before, is mostly partnerships with outside agencies. New human service partnership, that is the former COFU program, currently structured, provides mini grants and potentially high impact grants to agencies providing safety net and other services to the community. That's consistently been between 1.2 and 1.3.5 million over the last few years. We expect that to continue. We do partner with OCED to provide administrative staff, both for the partnership grant program and our HHSAB board and some other county-wide projects we partner in. That contract is usually about $165,000 for staff time. We expect that to continue and to be of significant value to us. And then we pass through, for lack of a better term, about $150,000 a year for the Ann Arbor Housing Commission staffing. And the Ann Arbor Housing Commission, as always, reports directly to the city administrator. Next slide. Parks and Recreation. This is our largest operation. About 60% of the parks operation is covered through the general fund, 40% through approximately, that changes from a year-to-year basis, through the general fund. The only significant change we have this year, we have a bunch of minor adjustments, but the one of significance is historically our liveries, both Gallup and Argo, which are combined, I believe still account and make up the largest livery in the state, was managed by one livery manager, rec supervisor, who recently retired. We don't think that is sustainable, nor do we think it is safe. We think it is important to have two livery managers, one at each location for backup and for succession planning reasons. It will cost about $89,000. We plan on covering most of that cost through either livery operations adjustments to fees, additional revenue based on increased taxes from the millage and other operations. So we don't think that will be a significant ask, but we do think it is important going forward. That person will also be able to assist with additional rink and other operations in the time. Planning, the only significant change from a general fund standpoint is one that was in the general fund before and that got set aside for stalled due to COVID and other reasons. And that is what we've considered to be a partnership or a combination project with the city's comprehensive plan. And that is one that the community has been community driven, one that's been of interest to council at times, and certainly to us. And that is to have an ongoing, continuing conversation with the community about racial equity and single family zoning in general. There's been a lot of work done from community partners. We now have a DEI office in the city. It is our intent to use this money to partner with them, to let them guide how we move forward and partner with those organizations community-wide on that conversation. And we think that it's one that's important and should be driven by the DEI office, not by the comprehensive master or the comprehensive land use plan process directly. So that is why that is back in the budget and one we hope council is interested in undertaking. Next slide. From major grants, these are things we pursue on a regular basis, so I don't know how major they are, but there are Spark grants up to $1 million. All of these are associated with parks. We are constantly in pursuit of MDNR grants, Department of Natural Resources, Water Quality Fund grants for parks, maybe not as applicable, but something we are constantly looking for. Double Up Food Bucks, I put this on here, even though it's not a large amount, the impact of it, dollar for dollar, is as important as anything we do. And that allows us to provide more food security through the farmers market to folks who need it. So we match some folks' funds when they need it to get additional food. Public engagement, the biggest project this year through our community services area, of course, will be the comprehensive plan. That is going to have a significant amount of engagement and be our primary focus for the next 2 years. It will touch on all areas of the city, and hopefully if we do our jobs well, it will reach out and have significant engagement with many different populations and portions of our community, not just those that live here, but those who work and do business and commute here as well. And anywhere else we may impact both the county and region. We hope to hear from everybody as part of this process. And then, as everybody knows, in everything we do, whether it's mandated by the federal government, the state government, locally, whether it's through public hearings at the 10 or so boards and commissions that we support through community services, whether it is outreach on specific projects related to land use or other instances, whether it is parks projects, we are constantly in the community engaging folks on what it is we do and what we intend to do. We don't see that changing, and we see it as a core part of what we do. I believe that's my last slide, so I appreciate the opportunity to share that with you this year. And with that, I will introduce Cheryl Sanborn from the courts, and thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cheryl Sanborn. I'm the court administrator for the 15th District Court. Our budget is approximately $5 million, and we have 35 full-time employees. I'm not going to read this first slide, but it tells you that we have 4 divisions and briefly what they do. Our major initiatives for the next fiscal year include courtroom reporting system upgrades. Courts are obligated to keep a record of court proceedings, and provide transcripts of those proceedings upon request. So this is important to us. Our current system has been in place since we moved into the Justice Center in 2011. So it's nearing end of life. Additionally, there's newer technology that will help us better capture the record. Meaning with COVID, the platform for court hearings changed. Not only did we have people appearing in person, but virtually, and we also had parties for the same hearing appearing on both, virtually and in person. So it makes it a little harder to capture that record. It also better captures any evidence that's presented to the court. All of this is wrapped into one better record of the proceedings, and it allows for better transcript and preparation. The other initiatives, they are both pieces of a bigger project. So we would be moving away from hard copy documents to electronic records. Anyone outside of the court who wished to file documents with the court would be able to do so 24/7 as long as they have a computer and internet access. Document management, of course, would allow us to take images of documents and put them through a workflow without needing to move that hard copy file from place to place. So there'd be increased accessibility, a consistent experience for filers, and internally it will save us time because we can search for records, view copies, store, print those from any workstation. Next slide, please. Our key request would be funds for the court recording system upgrades and the increase in weapon screening contract costs. The next two items are more of an opportunity. The city would not be funding the e-filing and electronic document management system project. That would be done by the State Court Administrative Office. Next slide, please. Grants we're pursuing. These are grants we pursue annually to fund services for problem-solving court participants. These are offered through the Michigan Supreme Court. Our partnership projects, we have several. My apologies ahead of time to partners if I don't list them out, but with e-filing and electronic document management, that would be the State Court Administrative Offices, JIS, and my file divisions. Problem-solving courts, we work with several different agencies and organizations, which include the Washington County Prosecutor, the City Attorney's Office, the Public Defender's Office, Community Corrections and Community Mental Health, John Farm, Public Division, Eisenhower Center, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and the Ann Arbor VA Hospital. The county and city pretrial divisions, or diversion programs, sorry about that. We work with the prosecutor's office, the city attorney's office, and the public defender's office. Legal assistance for criminal defendants. Our main partner is the public defender's office. Legal assistance for tenants, the University of Michigan Clinical Law Program, the University of Michigan Veterans Legal Clinic, and Legal Services of South Central Michigan do appear during our landlord-tenant dockets, and they will provide legal advice, even if ultimately they cannot represent the tenant. And then lastly, but not least, the expungement program. We are working in combination with the public defender's office. Next slide, thank you. Public engagement, we often have local high school and University of Michigan classes visit our dockets. They're especially interested in the problem-solving programs. The second bullet, problem-solving court presentations. We have coordinators for each program, and they will go out into the community and talk to different groups to let them know how these programs work. And then lastly, when we're talking about the e-filing and the electronic document management changes that we're making, we will be reaching out to the community with press releases, posters, brochures, social media posts, emails, and we'll have a special web page for that. That concludes my presentation. We are now transitioning back to Mr. Mahoney.
Thank you, Cheryl. Mayor and members of council, I take you back to last year, and we talked to you then about the importance of trying to leverage what we do. So one of the things that I hope you took note of as you heard the various presentations, we are extremely aggressive about trying to go after grant dollars to stretch our ability to perform on behalf of the residents that we're serving. We look on our own, we look with our lobbyists, we look with others, we get input from a variety of sources to help us get in position to go after grants. And so we expect that to continue. I expect you to continue to hear about that in the subsequent videos that we put together. The other thing that I would draw your attention to is where possible, where it's feasible, where it's appropriate, we try to work in partnership with other organizations in order to carry out what we're doing. We think that's a smart business, but it's also a recognition that as a lean organization, sometimes we need to leverage a partnership with other organizations or institutions in order to do a better job at service delivery. Last year, my recollection is we didn't get even double-digit worth of budget questions, which we were very surprised at. We try to be very clear and thorough in explaining what we're attempting to do, but we recognize you may have questions about it. You may have questions about, could we have done something a different way? And so the process for getting your questions addressed is to send them to Sarah Higgins with a copy to me, to Marty Prashant, and to Kim Busselmeyer, who also works in the finance department. Sarah organizes the questions by topic, and on Fridays, we send those responses back out. So it's not just the questions that you ask, you will see questions that anyone asks, and you'll see all of the answers. This is a process that's just for you. It's not for the public. It's our response to your questions about the administrator's proposed budget that you will get on April the 17th. There's a quick 30 days, around 30 days, before you will be asked to vote on the budget on May the 15th. So it's imperative that you get your questions in as they come to you. We need time to work on the responses, and we will try to crank them out weekly so you'll have them in time for your deliberations. This is the budget public process website. I believe we will have the videos posted there. And so please use this throughout the process. On behalf of the staff that you've heard from today, March the 3rd, we want to thank you for the opportunity to present information to you. I encourage you to watch this one and the other videos that are being made for baseline information. And I'll look forward to making the formal presentation or transmittal of the budget for you in a few weeks. Thank you.